Hi everyone, it's Kira here from CRG, and I am introducing Elizabeth Brown, who's going to be walking you through Microsoft Teams, the future of collaboration today. So without further ado, I'll let Elizabeth get started.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here today. So we're talking about Microsoft Teams, the future of collaboration today. So just a few housekeeping notes. The presentation is being recorded and will be sent out next week. Keep the questions coming. There's a little question window, so if you have any questions, just type them in and we'll get to them at the end. So my name is Elizabeth Brown. I'm the Business Solution Consultant here at Corporate Renaissance Group. I've worked here for about 6 years now. Initially, when I started, I was working sort of SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013. Since then, it's sort of all become Office 365, and it's all different little pieces that all fit together, which we'll discuss further in this webinar. So the agenda for today is we're going to discuss modern collaboration, why it's so important, what the possibilities are for teams, how you have sort of forums, document collaboration, online meetings, screen sharing, chatting, group discussions, employee recognition, planner tasks, and integration. So why is collaboration so crucial? The way that companies work is changing. It's faster paced combined with higher pressure. There's a sense that everything is needed immediately. The ability for more people across teams to collaborate on projects at the same time, the faster and the quicker the results. Also, remote working is key. These days, employees need to be able to share information instantly wherever they are. With Microsoft Teams, your staff can work together on a secure system while having the freedom they need to just move around as needed. You can see how important collaboration is for today's workforce as more and more people are adopting Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is a hub for teamwork, a chat-based workspace that enables teams to be more productive by giving them a single and secure location, bringing everything together teams need: chats, meetings, files, and tools. So is it enough? Collaboration is challenging unless everything is integrated and completely accessible. So it's a change in the way you're working. Instead of saying, we're going to store our files in SharePoint or GDocs, and we're having our emails are in Outlook, and we've got Skype for chatting or Slack for chatting internally or whatever chatting tool we're using. And then we have TeamViewer if we need to share a screen for support, or we're using GoToWebinar or some other sharing platform. So there's just, instead of having all these different tools, so I go to SharePoint to get a file, and then I go to Outlook to send an email. It's all integrated so that you're doing all your communication and collaboration in one place. So what is Microsoft Teams? So it is Microsoft's collaboration tool. It's replacing Skype for Business. Skype for Business on-premise, the server version is staying around, but the sort of cloud version, they were trying to funnel everyone slowly into Microsoft Teams. It's built in Office 365 and SharePoint Teams sites. So every time you create a team, you're also creating an Office 365 group. And that means there's a SharePoint Teams site, which is going to be used for storing all the documents associated with that team. And there's also an Outlook sort of email group formed. It's the sort of more modern version of an old distribution list. So you have all these sort of components coming together when you create a team that is built on all this different technology, and you have this sort of one place to get to different technologies. It also integrates with Planner and other applications, both Microsoft and non-Microsoft. It's the fastest growing Office 365 product. So Spiceworks conducted surveys of 901 organizations in 2016 and 2018. So 21% were using Teams in 2018, and 3% were using Teams in 2016. So that's quite a large growth. It was the second most popular collaboration tool in 2018. And the first place was Skype for Business, which Microsoft is trying to funnel people into Teams. Unless they're using Skype for Business on-premise, which they didn't specify. And there were 13+ million daily active users in Teams. And 87% of the Fortune 100 are now using Teams in some way. So what does Teams offer? It has chats, meetings, whiteboards, and actually a number of other features, which is why we sort of said, see what else there is, because you can actually put in Power BI dashboards, you can integrate it with Jira, you can integrate it with Google Docs. There's quite a lot of other data you can pull into it. So let us go take a look now. Oops, let me bring this down. So when I'm here, you can see this is Microsoft Teams. There's actually 3 variants of Teams. There is the desktop application, there's the web application, and then there is the mobile application. They all have the same sort of basic layout. The functionality varies slightly between them. Within browsers, depending on the browser you're using, it actually varies quite a lot. I know that Teams doesn't work in Safari, so if you're trying to use Safari as a browser, then you either need to use the mobile app or the desktop app. The functionality in Firefox can be more limited. Google Chrome has the best support for Teams. So basically, you kind of come in here, and you can see that along the left here, you've got sort of this activity, and that's kind of showing you all the different sort of activity that's happened. So you can see, oh, there was like a missed call. Someone tried to call me. Someone mentioned me. So you can see that there's like, this is just sort of your activity thread. And so as I mentioned, it's used for collaboration and for communication. So we're going to sort of discuss how there's 5 different ways you can sort of chat or communicate with someone. 5 different ways to communicate. So obviously, here you are in the chat window. This is kind of the first way. You can see you come up here and it says new chat. So I can just pick. This is sort of in the way over here. Let me just move this down a little bit. You can see that this is actually a DH account, and so when I'm talking to myself here, I'm talking to someone else, right? And so you can see there was actually a message sent here earlier. So that means if I went over from the web browser version to the desktop version, where I'm logged in as myself, for some reason this hasn't actually updated. Very interesting. Okay, so we'll just go into this version here. For some reason, the desktop Teams, it must have been, so I'm just going to come into it in here, into this web browser, and I'll talk from web browser to web browser. So if I go, you can actually see now that the chat has got this little 1 mark on it, so you can see that I have a message here. So I can see, oh, that Doug had sent me, and you can see that there's this line up here saying last read. So if the conversation continues, it's kind of saying, hey, this is where you've seen to, and this is the new stuff. So I can just respond. And now, again, if I'm just going to switch windows, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because it's a communication tool. So we'll have to kind of switch back and forth between windows. So hopefully this will kind of make more sense. So you can see now I'm back here, and I can see, oh, there's a reply here. So I can say, where is it? And then you can see I actually get a little pop-up notifying me that, hey, someone sent a message to me, and I can go click on it, and then it's going to take me right to it. So I'll say, HR. So there it is. And now there's going to be another pop-up so that if I flip back to Doug's view, you can see he's seeing that message. And so you can kind of have it in a one-on-one chat like this. So that is pretty useful that you can have a chat like that back and forth. But the other thing you can do is you can actually add additional people. So you don't have to chat to just one person. So interesting. I see what's going on. I was trying to add the guest user. Oh, that's because I'm myself. All right. sorry, I'm getting confused about which user I am. So if I wanted to, I can actually, so when I pick Doug, it actually gives me the whole screen of the conversation. But then if I want to say add in like Cindy, then you can see it's saying I'm starting a new conversation and I can chat to the two of them. So I can say, it can be casual. And then if you wanted to, there's like these giffies like this, so you can kind of make it a little bit more fun. And then just click on that. To make sure you send it, you can hit enter. There's also this little post button here that will send it, and you can send that, and then everyone will have that little image as well. If you're concerned about people sending images or using up a lot of bandwidth with Giphies, you can turn it off. You can turn it off on sort of organizational-wide level or in a certain sort of team level where you can say, okay, well, this team is more fun, interactive, so we'll allow it on this channel, but we're going to disable it on these teams. So you can kind of specify where you're allowing it as well by creating different policies. So if I then go over to Cindy's view, and she should come into this chat here. And she would see that showing up here. So if I go back to Doug's view, and go into this chat. Oh, I hit some. And so you can see you can have a chat with multiple people at once. So that can be kind of useful, that you can kind of have a large chat. So I mean, if I wanted to, you can see there's this little pen next to it, so I can name this good group chat. So if it's people that like I talk to a lot for whatever reason, then I can kind of just create an informal group like that. And then that means that if I wanted to start a new chat, instead of having to type their whole names, I can just type in that name of the group, and then automatically I'm talking to both Cindy and Doug. So it's kind of, that's very useful in terms of then you can talk to a bunch of people as one, which is useful. So that's a fun thing to do, but I mean, it can also be kind of painful then if you have to keep adding people like each time. So if you had like sort of 5 people, you can create a group, but then if those 5 people also need to talk to you, then they'd have to create the same group. So that's kind of where the team comes in, where instead of having sort of this more informal, where it's like, okay, I'm going to create a group of a couple of people or maybe 5 people, and then I can always just chat to these 5 people at once. It's much more formal, so you have these teams here where these groups are sort of predefined. Now, when you're predefining groups, there's sort of 3 ways of doing it. So this first one here, because this is our Sphere Group development environment, is our Sphere Group development environment organizational-wide team. So what this means is that everyone in your organization, as soon as you assign a license to them, is basically given access to this team. And so it sort of replaces or supplements, I guess, depending a bit on your organization, the sort of mail to everyone. So instead of sending a mail to everyone saying, hey, there's like donuts in the kitchen sort of thing. So you could say, hey, and then if you want to make it really fun, you could put in a Giphy of some donuts or something. Oops. Happy jumping donuts. And then I can just click down here, and then everyone knows that. Instead of sending an email to everyone saying there's donuts in the kitchen, you can just use this sort of group channel. And what will happen is that when people come in, they will see that this, you see how this special project down here is in bold? They will see that it's in bold, and they'll be able to get access to it that way. So, and you can kind of sort of scroll up and see that you can add like different news articles and stuff like that. So there's different ways of adding that. You can come down here and say, little one. News. So you can add news. So you can say, so if I wanted to say Microsoft Teams, and so then I can say, oh, look, here's this article about Teams. I want to share it with everyone. And then just kind of, you could add a bit of text. And then just hit enter or press this little button down here, and then that's going to be shared with everyone in the team. So, I mean, company news, like if there was a news article about your company, then you could kind of link to it here, and then everyone would see it. You can also, or if there was like a news article about a competitor or something that you wanted to share, it's an easy way of just sort of broadcasting it, and then when people click on this link, then they're obviously going to go to that article. You can also have things like stocks. So if your company is very interested in stocks, you can enter a stock symbol and have a posting about that up here. You can do places. So for instance, like if you knew that you were going to have, you were meeting at like Rideau Center or something like that for a company event, then you can kind of pick that there and say, don't forget, this is the location. Meeting here tomorrow, or however you want to share that. So there's a lot of sort of little integrations that are built in out of the box. There's praise here too. So this is a newer addition. So basically, if you want to sort of say, I think someone's done a really awesome job, like you've been a great team player, or thanks so much for your problem solving. You have these sort of different badges, and then you can say whoever you want to send it to, and then just kind of add a personal note, helping me solve my problem, or whatever it is. And then you can sort of do a preview, and you see it's going to send a little badge like that. And then when you send it, that's going to show up in the whole channel, and everyone's going to know that you're sort of sending praise to that person. So it's just kind of an easy way to sort of send employee recognition across the whole company, saying, hey, this person helped me with this, especially if you send it in this team, because this is the organizational-wide team. So everyone's automatically enrolled in this team. We'll talk a little bit about meetings in a moment, so I'm just going to leave that for now. You can see you can add stickers as well. So there's like some fun things like this where you can just kind of have something like this, I can fix it, or however you want, just fun little things that can be sent. As you can see, you can also add in like YouTube videos here. So if you wanted to share, you had a YouTube video about a how-to or an interesting YouTube video that you felt would be beneficial to share with the whole company, then you can do that. Of course, Wikipedia and weather to be shared as well. I suppose the weather, you could do it more if you were in a nicer location, someone was in terrible weather. But anyways, so we'll make sure that gets sent. So you can see quite a lot of different sort of options that you have. So this next team here is the social committee, and you can see where there's the sort of idea that there's a channel within here, so that the social committee is just kind of, it's going to be a public open group. They've got a general sort of channel, like, hey, here's some pictures from the company picnic. I just put sort of images up there. And then you have like an idea for new events, so that if anyone had an idea for a new event, then that's where this can go. So the idea behind the sort of groups is like, here are their different groups, and then the channels are like different sort of subdivisions within there. Currently at the moment, if you give someone access to the team, they're going to have access to all the channels. Security trim channel, so you can say, we want to have a team and we want to have people to have access to like the sort of general channel, but then we want to have sort of a development channel and we only want 3 people to have access to that. That is coming. Microsoft was saying October, so hopefully that's really, really soon, but I think they've delayed it a bit to December, so it's a little bit later, but that will be really useful. It is a little bit tricky right now because Internally, we've been using Teams ourselves, so we want to share documents with clients. You can invite guest users, so we have a team to share documents with clients, and then we want to have a channel just for our internal staff so we can discuss the project, and we don't necessarily want all that conversation to be visible to the client. So then we end up having our sort of internal client team project and then an external facing one where the client has access. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to manage because we're creating two different teams. The other thing is this is where you become a little bit into governance, because what happens is if you allow people to create lots and lots of teams and then they're creating a lot of channels within the team, then it can get really hard for people to find things. So this has actually happened with the client. So they've added a number of us to their internal teams, but they have created like a development team, and then they have a testing team, and then they also have a training team. And so when you're a member of these three teams, and then there's a lot of channels, so they've created quite broken down channels within all these teams. So there's about 5-6 channels per team. So you come in there and you go, I remember I had this conversation, but I don't remember which team related to this project it was and which channel. So when you are setting these up, just kind of think a little bit about that, because if you have too many options, it's a little overwhelming. And if maybe you only have a general channel, it might be a little bit overwhelming, because then there's quite a lot of information about a lot of different things in one place. So there is a little bit of oversight that's going to be required there. So now I'm just going to switch a view just for a moment. This one should. So I'm back over here on Doug's view, so you can see the DH. So if I go into the teams here, you can see he sees the whole CR group development team, because that's the organizational wide team. And you can see, he can see the various sort of posts I put up there earlier, the praise I sent and the I can fix it. And as I scroll up, you can see the article and the places. So you can see all that information that's come up. And you can see right here, this is where the last red bar was, because all those posts I did on using my account. And you can say, oh, here's all the things that have updated down here. So you can kind of tell by scrolling up like what's new and what you have seen before, which I think is really fairly useful. So you can see that I only see a couple of teams because I'm not a member of the other team, right? And down here on the bottom, it says join or create a team. If you're worried about people creating too many teams, you can turn off the ability, so you can prevent users from creating teams so that then they can only try to join a team. So what happens when I try to join a team? So I can actually start, so you see that the social committee shows up here, because the social committee is a public team, and that means that anyone can just say, hey, I want to come and join this team. And so then I can request to join it, and now I'm a member of that team. And so if you have something like a social committee where it's more just sort of like, hey, here's all our social events, making it a public team means that people can just join as they want, they can leave as they want, they can manage their own membership. On the other hand, if you had a sort of project where it was a lot more sensitive information, you wouldn't want to make it a public team like that where anyone in the organization could just say, hey, I want to join this team and see this potentially confidential information. In that case, what you do is you make it a private team, and then private teams people can only join by invitation. Which you actually can see here where it's saying join a team with a code. So there's an option to send a code saying, hey, here's a join code, and then they can enter in that code and join the team. So different ways with different levels of teams. So this one is actually a private team, so only members are going to be able to come in and see it. The other team that you would have seen over here, when I go back to here, sorry. So the special project team, that's also a private team, which is why it didn't show up for Doug, so that he wasn't going to be able to join it just automatically. So as you've seen, you can chat with someone. You can also have a team sort of conversation where they'll see all that information. If you want to, you can actually come in and sort of mention someone. And the idea is you just sort of click the @ sign and you start typing their name. And then sort of say, oh, sorry, I must have hit caps lock there, like. And then what happens with that is that then the user gets a notification that they have been that there's a message directed at them. And if you mention someone and they're not signed into Teams, after a set period of time, they will receive an email in Outlook saying, hey, someone's trying to reach you in Teams. Maybe you should go log into Teams. I think it's about a couple of hours. It's not right away. It does take a little bit of time if they haven't logged into Teams before that email is sent. You can change that a little bit probably. I go back to Doug. So you can see when I come in here as Doug, it says ideas for new teams. There's this little one here saying, hey, something's updated here. There's this little @ on the Teams, and then it also shows up in the activity. So I can say, oh, someone mentioned me up here. You can go back into the team, and I can see it down there, or I can also see it in the activity. So the activity can be pretty useful that way. So that's another way is you can sort of chat with them directly. You can mention them. Another way, if you really want to get hold of someone, is you can actually just call them. So you can basically see, it says add some contacts and give them a name. So it's got suggested contacts because as Doug, I've been talking to Elizabeth, to myself. So I can kind of do audio call or video call. Video call is not supported in this browser. You'll notice differences between browsers between what's supported. If you do go into the desktop application, it would be supported, and it is supported in the mobile version. So I'll just say allow, and then you can see it's actually trying to call me. And then so you can see, because he's calling me on the same computer, I can actually say I want to decline it. Yeah, I want to accept it with audio, or I just want to accept it with video. I'm just going to accept it with audio because otherwise I think I would just confuse myself trying to see the screen. And let me go mute this right away, just so that I don't get a lot of feedback while I'm trying to talk to myself on my computer. So you can see you can actually have this direct call. It can be really, really nice because if you're traveling and you don't want to call someone using your phone because you're going to end up having to pay like huge roaming charges, you can just go someplace where there's either data or Wi-Fi and then just connect to Teams and just make a call this way. And generally, it's as long as the Wi-Fi is pretty good, you have a very decent audio connection. It is actually one of the things that Microsoft asks you quite a lot to rate when you leave how the audio call was. So it is something they're monitoring and trying to make sure that the audio calls within Teams have a very high standard. So you can see I've muted myself here, but you can also unmute. I just don't want to have a lot of feedback going on right now. So within the call as well, you can kind of share. So you can say, actually share my screen, and then that's going to be visible here. So that now I can see my own screen, which is now like this wonderful infinite loop of screen sharing. It's not pretty though, but maybe we'll stop that. If I can, I'm not sure. I might just hang up the call just to get out of that. And so you can see as I hang up this call, the thing I'm asked is, how is the call quality? Whether it's good or bad or not. So I'm just going to dismiss it because I didn't really get to hear that. So if I go back into calls, you can see it's showing you sort of suggested calls. You can actually, and then it's saying add some contacts, right? So I can go in here and say, yeah, I want to add up some contacts. And then you have speed dial as well for people you really want to talk to a lot. So to add a contact, I just go over to this and left nav where it says contacts and go, okay, I'm going to add a contact here. And so I can pick a couple of different people from the organization. Depending on your org settings, you can add people who aren't part of your organization as well, so they don't necessarily have to belong to the same organization. You can talk, yeah, you can talk to anyone else who has a Teams account, as long as the organization and your organization are allowing that. So I think it's pretty open for the most part right now, so you can probably just talk to anyone. The other thing you can do, so you can actually, so you can see if you wanted to just switch to chat, you can just click on that and switch quite quickly to chat. So it has new groups, so if I wanted to call a couple of people, sorry, this is to organize contact groups. So if you had like sort of like different business units or something like that where it made sense, you can organize your contacts that way just to make it a little bit easier to find. So I'm just going to make another quick call here. Now, hopefully that's just going to pop up. It is calling me, and I'm not sure where that window is. Oh, here it is. If I answer that, you good. So I've got this call going. I just wanted to show a few other things. So you can show the participants, so you can see who's in the call. So if you wanted to, you can actually add in some other people and just sort of have other people added into the call as well. So you can see that they're trying to call Cindy now, so that we're going to have another contact here. Now, hopefully, I think there's just some lag going on. It should show up in a moment. It's just not coming. Oh, you know what? It's not going to show up because that's Firefox. I was trying to use Firefox, and Firefox isn't really great for supporting calls. So that's not going to work wonderfully well right now. But you can also have a chat conversation as well. So if you wanted to have a meeting chat, and you can see when I click on meeting chat, because I was talking to Doug and Cindy earlier, and those were the things that I had sent to them, it's showing me our previous chat, even though this is now a call. And so if you needed to, if for whatever reason, like this is more useful, I guess, if you're doing sort of support calls where someone's having an issue, you can say, hey, can I record this so I can come back and see it later on? So can you share your screen and I can record it, and then we can kind of have a trace of what's happening. And so that can be kind of useful. And so then it's just sort of a bunch of different device settings and stuff as well. So the recording and the screen sharing is pretty useful. Within the screen sharing, if you had like a PowerPoint presentation, you can also actually share that in here. And then you have like a whiteboard sort of add-in that you can share, so that then you can add in like a little whiteboard plugin and then actually just be drawing on the whiteboard together within the meeting, which is another useful plugin. It's not, this is actually by separate companies, so you see you have to add it in. And so then it's going to ask you to sign in or sign up for it, right? So it is a third-party application, but I think it's pretty useful being able to just have that in there and have a whiteboard within a meeting, or within a call. So you can see that's how it's now asking about how the call quality is. So that's how it works for calling someone from the desktop application. From the web application, which you can do in Chrome, not supported in Firefox. It's supposed to come in Firefox at some point. And again, it's just asking about the call quality. So that's another way of sort of communicating with people, is using a call. You can also communicate with them using a meeting. So if I'm here in a meeting, right? So in the calendar itself, like this will sort of show you all your meetings. And then you can kind of come and say, oh, add in a new meeting, right? And then of course you have standard sort of meeting invites, like when it is and who you want to invite, right? So. And so then that's just scheduled, right? And so because it's going on right now, you can click to join and chat with a participant. And you see that there's this Join Microsoft Teams meeting. It's actually a useful feature within Outlook that you can also, when you're in Outlook and you go into your calendar, if you're still sort of haven't transitioned into completely using Teams for everything, which I think is probably true of most people. But one of the great things is that there's this new Teams meeting option up here on your bar. As long as you're using the latest version of Outlook, this will show up. And then when you click on that, it automatically adds that Join Teams Meeting link to this meeting. And everyone you get will be able to click Join Teams Meeting. And even if they don't have a Microsoft account, so even if they don't have the desktop version of Teams, they'll still be able to access it through the web browser. And if they're using Chrome, they'll be able to share their screen. If they're using Firefox, they're much more limited, or if they're using Safari, it will be a little tricky. But as long as they have something like Chrome, which I hope most people do, because I think it's one of the more reliable browsers, then they can get into that meeting. So it's pretty useful having that little Join Teams meeting. So if I click Join this meeting, you can see when I come in here, let me just mute myself to start with and turn off my camera. And so when I click Join Now, yeah, I'm sorry, we're just waiting for this connection. Well, this is a bit unusual. It's usually much faster. Okay, so now you can see it's actually showing up. And you can see when I'm in this meeting, it's basically got similar functionality. I can share my screen as the screen share, the PowerPoint presentation, the whiteboard. There's more actions about whether or not you want to do a recording, whether you want incoming video turned off. You can put meeting notes, and again, there's like a little participant and chat window. So you can see who else is here as well. So I'm just going to hang up and end this. And so I'm going to hit dismiss on that again. So you can see that this meeting, even though I kind of scheduled it here in my calendar, it just showed up as a chat, right? You can also have Teams meetings, right? So if I was in this channel here and I wanted to schedule a meeting, sorry, it's this one, through this little camera, then I can just automatically just do like this auto meet now, and then I can just say, hold sort of an impromptu meeting, meet now, and say like urgent discussion. You can also schedule a meeting for later. You can just do meet now. And then because I did that in the team channel, that means that anyone who has access to that team, and right now everyone has access to the team, has access to team channels, but they're going to put team channel level permission. So eventually everyone who has access to that team channel will be able to come into there and see that there's a meeting going on and then join sort of impromptu. So if I switch over to my account from Deb's account and I go into the teams, so you can see when I go into this H4, I can see that, hey, there's this urgent discussion going on, and decide just to join it and come in right now. Let me turn that off again, just so I don't have an endless feedback loop. And you can see, oops. I thought I joined that muted. Okay, and now it's muted, so. And you can see over here when it's saying currently in the meeting, you can see their status of whether their microphone is muted or not. So pretty useful in terms of if you are having a project or something where you do want just everyone to or you could have like a department, a team for a department, then as long as the meeting's scheduled within that team, then everyone can automatically see it in the team channel and just join automatically. Where if you schedule it via chat, then it's going to be more one-on-one or whoever's specified in the group, and it's going to show up in a chat. I think I have been using it myself to communicate, have meetings with different people, and I find that it works fairly well. Even people who I think are pretty new to Teams have been able to kind of come in and get joined. It might take them a couple of minutes, but it's been working very well when I've been using it with external non-CR group staff, external clients. So I was talking about how there's a number of different ways to communicate. So as you can see, you can chat directly with someone. You can have a group chat. You can chat within a team where it's a predefined group. And you have like the add mentions where it's a bigger group. So you're saying, hey, I really want this person to be notified. You can also add mention multiple people. So if you want to let everyone know, then you can do it. You can also add mention the whole team. So if you really wanted everyone in this team channel to know what you're saying, you can add mention the team. And we've discussed different ways of meeting as well, and how you can have like sort of meeting within a teams or a more sort of individualized chat meeting. So another way you can actually communicate with people is you can actually communicate within a document. So if I'm within a chat window here, and if I decide I want to go attach a file, right? So I'm just going to upload a demo file here. And so that's just, you can see the bar is just uploading here, so it's just taking a moment, and then I can just hit send. Actually, I sent that to the meeting, but let me send it. Yeah. I should have actually meant to have double check that and send it to, let me do it, send it here. So, sorry, 1 second, let me just go get that again. And again, you can see it's just rolling up. And so when I hit send, right, so that's shared with the 3 people within this channel, right? And so what happens is when I share a file, it's showing up here in the channel, and then you're like, well, if I want to get it later on, you can see it's actually, sorry, over here there's this Files tab, and then that document shows up in that File tab. It will show up there for everyone. Where this file is actually stored, it's stored in my OneDrive and automatically shared with everyone who's participating in this chat. So they all have access to it, and the actual location is my OneDrive, right? So it also means you can click on that document, and then it will open it up, and it will show you the content within that document. And you can come in and hit edit. Sorry. When you hit edit, I meant to hit next to it, and I actually didn't. So I'm in the edit version here, and you can see there's sort of like comments you can add over here as well, right? So you're actually, and then there's the open in the desktop app, but 1 second, let me just close out of here. So when you edit, so there's edit in Teams, edit in the desktop app, and edit open in the browser. So there's a number of different options. So if you have the desktop app, obviously that has the most functionality. Open in the browser. If you don't have the desktop app, that can be useful. And then again, you can edit in Teams, which is the sort of default option when I clicked on the edit. So that's what went into there. And so then again, you can see there's some more options about downloading it. So you can kind of just come in here and make edits in the file. You have a limited sort of browser options here where you can kind of see that, right? And so you can see when I switch over to my other user account here, you can say, oh, look, there's this new message, and then I can click on that. And again, it's going to open up the little viewer in Teams, right? And sorry, for some reason, I'm finding it a little bit slower today, so. And you can see, now that I've logged in, I can actually see that there's another person here, and we can actually start chatting within here. So I can see that Doug's got the same document open, so we're both looking at the exact same document. As we're working on it and editing it, it's a similar, for people who've actually ever used SharePoint, there's a co-authoring feature. So it's basically the same sort of functionality as co-authoring here. And then so I can see that's his location where Doug is working. And then when I click join group chat, you see it's actually opening up a little chat window. So I can say, if it was a budget or something like that, do you think the numbers are correct? Or if it was a calculation, or if you felt the phrasing of something was wrong, you could ask a question like that. So now if I switch here, which group that was? Oh, I'm in the meeting here. What I had is, I'm sorry, I'm actually just confusing myself trying to figure out where, but I would be able to switch back and see the other group chat here. Yes. So yes, I'm here as Doug, and then I can see the other comment. And so you can see that you can actually have like sort of a chat within the document as multiple people are working on co-authoring it. This is a Word document. It also does work with Excel and PowerPoint. So yeah, you can also do it on different types of documents. So if I'm within a team, right, so that was in a chat window where it was more of an visualized thing. So if I was here and I wanted to upload a file, so actually just let me pick up. So when I'm here and I want to upload, let me just add in a file. And again, you see it's very much the same as the chat. It's within a team. So I'm going to share that file here. And then again, you have the same Files tab, so I can go over there and see that file. But this time, because I shared it within a team channel, it's not stored in my OneDrive. It's actually stored in SharePoint. So you can see it says here, open in SharePoint. So if I click on that link, it will open it up the SharePoint site located behind. Because every time you create a team site, there's a SharePoint site created behind. It's just my default browser will cause an error because I've got a different connection logged in. It'll give me an access denied error when I try to do it here. Actually, it is working. Okay, that's good. So you can see when I click on open in SharePoint, you've got a standard sort of SharePoint site, and there's the document. And you've got all the SharePoint functionality of like new upload that you get in a document library. You notice that it also has add cloud storage. So if you're not just using SharePoint, or if you have a separate SharePoint location where you're like, actually want to link that location to here, you could select that. There's Dropbox, Box, ShareFile, and Google Drive are some options here. So if for whatever reason you had files in Google Drive, you can add that in here, and then people would be able to access those cloud storage locations from their team. So even though it's not in SharePoint, you can still get to it from the team. So it's useful because it's one place and you can get to multiple different locations. So that's sort of 5 different ways of communicating that we've discussed. One other thing I want to talk about with the chat is if I was in here, and I'm in Doug, so if I just needed to talk, and then one of the options down here is there's delivery options that you can set on a message so that it's just standard option. You have mark as important, and if it's really, really urgent, you really need this person, then you can say, you can actually see that the options are recipient notified, and you can see it tells you right at the top. So that they're basically just going to be, I really need your help. So there's this notification. And then it's just going to keep popping up until I respond to that and see it. So in terms of getting people's attention right away, it's very useful. So one of the other things I want to talk about is that there's some other integrations. So let me just switch my view here. So within a special project, I don't know who's heard of this, but there's what's called planner, right? And so what planner is it's sort of a to-do list. So if you had sort of like design tasks or development tasks, it basically allows you to like create a bunch of different buckets of like sort of design, development, testing, training, and have different tasks assigned within there. And you just assign them to people. And what happens is when they get assigned to people, they will, and you can see this is my urgent call coming up here, how it's showing there. So when these tasks get assigned to people, they will get a notification sent to them. And then, of course, they get notifications when the tasks are overdue or almost due. And so it's useful. And so what happens with Planner is you can see you have like little tabs added here. So you can actually add it within a team. And the way Planner works is when you create a planner, that planner is assigned to an Office 365 group. And if you remember, every time you create a team, that team is based on an Office 365 group. So it's very easy to link the two together because the planner comes with an Office 365 group and so does the team. So it's very simple to straightforward to add a planner and have different tasks that are then assigned to everyone within that team. There are some other options here too. You can have, so if you click on the Add a tab, you can see Power BI. So if you had a dashboard, so if you were a sales team and you wanted to have like a sort of sales graphic of how your sales were doing, you could have a Power BI dashboard and then have that right there as a tab. Planner, PDFs, OneNote, those are all Excel files. Those are all pretty straightforward. Same thing with PowerPoint. You can have a link to SharePoint. You can build a custom application page within SharePoint, so you can have a customized SharePoint page appear up there as well. Stream is the video service within Office 365, so you could have a video there. Word documents, obviously, different document libraries. Forms is a survey product, so you can also have like a sort of little survey available. A quick example here is just sort of a very basic customer satisfaction, just sort of a registration number, how happy, and any other comments. So it's very straightforward. But the interesting thing about this is because everything is connected together, you can build a form that belongs to you, or you can have a form that belongs to an Office 365 group. And so if the form belongs to an Office 365 group, it's going to be very easy to associate that with the team, because the team is also built on the same technology. And then you see where it says more tabs, there's quite a number of third-party options as well. So if you're using something like Jira, you can link in Jira, Atlassian. There's quite a number of options, as you can see. Some of these, Zoho is a CRM, so you can have a link to your CRM system here, if that's what you're using. It's this one, Zoho CRM, but you can see there's like Adobe signing, so if you need to have sign functionality in your PDFs. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of different options here, quite a number. Some of them you will need licenses because they are third party, so it depends on what you're trying to do, but a number of options. I'm just going to point out Power Apps and Flow. So Power Apps and Flow are part of what's called the Power Platform, which includes Power BI as well. And these three products are designed for sort of super user, non-developer development, so that people can without a developer background, so you don't need to actually write code, so there are no code solutions, can make customizations. You can't do everything with them, but they're actually quite useful and you can do a lot, but you can then link them in here if you need to. So I'm just going to close that down. That's about it. I believe we've covered how you can work with your files, how you can communicate in a number of different ways, all in one place, and how you can get access to a number of different projects and files. Are there any questions? come back here. Good. What did I just do? Okay. So just to recap, Microsoft Teams is the collaboration tool. It's built on and integrates with many different Microsoft products and non-Microsoft products as well. So it really can become the hub that you just one place and you can get access to pretty much everything you need. And it's experiencing incredible growth right now. So expect new functionality to be added. They're continuing to work on it. There is, I will actually just open this up and let everyone see it because I actually think it's quite useful. What's called Microsoft User Voice. So if anyone is using Teams, or even if you're using SharePoint, it actually, there's a SharePoint user voice as well, but you see it's got Microsoft Teams user voice right here. And then let me just continue. And basically, it just allows people to vote on issues. So you're saying, improve API to navigate to Teams. So this is an issue that someone who's got 58 votes and how they're saying we want to improve the API, we want to make it easier. So if there's something you're like, I really, really want this feature, come in here, search for it, see if someone's already put it in there, and if they do, vote. You just need to create an account, and once you've created an account, you can come in and vote. And the more votes they get, they do listen to it, and that's why the private Teams is coming, the private channels is coming, is because there is an issue in here about asking for private channels and has a lot of votes. It has about, I think, the last time I looked, it was around about 1,000 or so. So quite a lot of people have voted for it, and that's why Microsoft is working on it. So they do monitor it and they do listen to it. So if there is something you really want, come here, search for it, and vote on it. Go back to the slide. So, yes. Any other questions? So there was a question about using both Microsoft Teams and Skype. So, because they mentioned that Teams is the replacement for Skype, what there is there's a number of different ways of doing it. So you can actually use Skype and Teams. It's called Islands mode, so that people can use Skype and they can also use Teams. Then you can also have like a Teams only mode where everyone's just forced into using Teams. And then there's a number of sort of gradations in between. So if you're using Skype for Business and you're interested in using Teams, the easiest thing to do is just say, let's put Teams in Islands mode, and then people can try using Teams, and then they can try using Skype. And we can kind of have an evaluation period. And then you can say, okay, we're going to force all the chats now to go into Teams so that everyone has to use Teams for chatting and they can't use Skype for that anymore. And then there was another question about how much does it cost. Teams is included in most Office 365 subscriptions. So as long as you have a subscription for email, for Word, for Excel, for all the Office products, it's included. It's like SharePoint and OneDrive. Teams, they kind of all get bundled together and included in most subscriptions. So you probably, if you have an Office 365 subscription, you probably have Teams. You might not be using it, but you should have access to it. Thank you very much, and I hope you found this informative.